Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley from Inklipse and welcome to another video. Now I shared my craft room tour video just a little while ago here on my channel and you guys took a huge liking to that video, so thank you so much for all of your support on that. But little did you guys know, I always constantly change my organization and storage in this room to really fit my needs. So if something's not really working out too well for me, I'm going to change it up a little bit until I find the perfect storage solution that really helps me out as I'm creating. So I decided I would split my craft room up into lots of little videos and I'll share them as I find the perfect storage for each item in my craft room. And then I'll share that video with you guys to make sure that that storage is really helpful for me and hopefully it'll help you all out too. So today I thought I would take you guys on a closer look on how I label and organize and store my embossing powders to keep them really nice and on hand for me as I use them in my projects. So when it comes to embossing powders that are colored and I don't use super often, I keep them right inside these little jars that they come in. So these happen to be little Ranger embossing powders that I just got, so I'm going to share exactly how I labeled them to put them inside my drawer, because it's a little bit difficult to see exactly what the color is going to look like just by the tone of the powder. So to label this, I like to keep it really clean and simple. So I'll just pull off the lid here, and this is what we're going to do our label on. I don't like messing with little pieces of paper, so embossing right onto here will be just perfect. So all I'm going to do is bring in some embossing ink. This is the clear sticky ink that the embossing powder will stick to. So I just dip that top of the lid right into the ink pad and dab it down a couple of times. And then I can grab in a coffee filter, and this will make sure that I can pour out my embossing powder into here. I like to dump it out instead of dumping it on. It gives it a little bit of a cleaner look. And then I'll just pat the lid right down into the powder. Now you'll notice it's a little bit chunky, it picked up quite a bit. So you can tap off any of the excess powder you've got on there. And then we can move on to heating this powder up. So now we're going to heat the lid to set the embossing powder. Now when you do this, you don't want to melt the plastic of the lid. This does get really hot. So I'm going to turn it on for a couple of seconds to let it heat up off to the side, and then I'll bring it to my project to really make sure that it gets nice and heated but not melted. Okay, so once it's all melted, I'll dump the excess powder from the coffee filter right back in to clean it all up there. And then you want to wait for this to kind of cool down a little bit. It'll still be really hot. So I'm just going to put that lid right back on, and we'll give it some time to cool down without touching the top of the embossing there. But this gives that really simple color-coded label without having to mess with any paper or anything, but it gives you a really good idea of what the color is going to be. Now labeling the tops can also be really helpful when you have mixed embossing powders that are really unique. So here is this verdigris embossing powder from Ranger, which is really super unique. It's got a bunch of different colors in it, but in the jar it looks a lot different than what it looks like when it's all heat set and embossed like this. So having this label on each one of the little powders is really quick and easy to do, but it really helps you for when you're creating your projects to pick out the right color. Now to store my more used embossing powders like clear embossing and white embossing powder, I like to keep them in large containers so I can really easily throw over the powder and not have to mess with the coffee filter and dumping it right back into the jar. So this eliminates some of that mess and cleanup you have to do, and it saves a little bit of time too. So these are kind of deep Sistema containers, and they're just big enough so that a card base can fit in here really nicely, so I'm not going to be spilling all over my desk. I definitely need to refill these, so this has clear embossing powder and this has white, and I like to keep enough on hand so it's really easy to pick it up and dump it right over your project. And these containers are really nice too. This idea I got from Jennifer McGuire with these awesome containers here. They're snappable and they keep the embossing powder nice in there, none of it falls out. But then you can easily scoop up your embossing powder and dump it right over your project, and it really eliminates all the mess you have to go through. And again, I do have to refill these, but it's really nice to have these on hand because I use them on almost every project. So having them in little storage containers like this saves lots of time. Now I also put ultra thick embossing powder in a larger container too. And this is because I find this stuff really helpful for certain techniques to save lots of time. So I have this in kind of a thinner Sistema container, but it's still big enough to fit a card base inside here. So you can see I've emptied out the larger container that it comes in, And I put it all in here with the little lid inside of it, so I'm easily able to scoop it on and avoid any mess that I have to go through. You can see these granules in here are a lot bigger than regular embossing powder. So this can be really nice for certain techniques, and I'll show them right now. So I've got a layered die cut right here. This is just a layered hello die cut, and I've put a couple on top of each other. And when I do this, I really like to have a glossy finish on top of these, but I don't love having to wait for it to dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the clear embossing ink, and I'll apply lots of that ink over top of this die cut. And then all I have to do is go in with this clear UT embossing powder, so this is ultra thick, and I'll just put it right over the surface of that die cut. You can see those granules are really thick and chunky, but this is going to give us, avoid having to put on as many layers as you would with a thinner embossing powder. So after just one coat of that clear, thick embossing powder, here is what the die cut looks like. Usually, to get this kind of effect with that raised, kind of jelly bean-like effect, you really have to add a couple layers of that, clear, fine powder. So having this thick powder on hand in a container like this is really nice because I cover lots of die cuts like this, and I find it really helpful to have this kind of stuff on hand. Okay, so now I'm going to take you back there and show you a quick peek inside both drawers where I really store the embossing powders and how I kind of do it. It's pretty simple, but it's definitely very efficient for my workspace. Alright, so in this first drawer here, this is one of the smaller drawers. I keep all of my little jars of the embossing powder here in rainbow order, and I have them all labeled on the top lids like I just shared. So this one is labeled with that color on top, because the color inside might not really show what the color is going to look like. So I know exactly what each one is going to look like on a project, and I've even done that with these Nuvo embossing powders too, where the lid is kind of that crystal. I've still embossed it right on top by just adding that little embossing powder and dipping it into the clear ink. So this is really helpful to be able to see all the colors like this and choose them for my project. And I also have a non-slip pad in the bottom of this throughout the whole drawer, so that when I push in or out of the drawer, they're not going to go sliding around and having to rearrange this drawer a ton of different times. So there's still a little room for growth in the back, and I love collecting all these different colors and having the option for all these colors on my projects. And then in one of the larger drawers, I have really simply just the containers of the white and the clear embossing powders. So these are in the bigger containers, and I can reach for these whenever I need them really quick and easily. And I have the ultra thick embossing powder on the side here, and then I keep two different things in the back here. I keep a pile of coffee filters because those are really good for these littler containers. There's just lots of room in this bottom drawer, so I decided to put them down here. And also these Swiffer cloths are easy for cleaning up embossing powder, but also glitter too. So I keep them all in this drawer because this one wasn't quite full enough, and it gives me more room in the other drawers to collect some little bottles of glitter and embossing powders. Alright, so I hope you guys found that video helpful, sharing how I store my embossing powders. I would love to hear how you guys store your embossing powders, so be sure to leave a comment down below letting me know, and I'll chat with you guys down there in the comments. Also, if you want to, leave a comment letting me know if you want to see other parts of my room and what you guys might be struggling with, so hopefully I can help you out with some different organization in future videos as well. Be sure to give this video a big like if you learned a little bit, and click the subscribe button if you want to see more crafty and organization videos from me like this. I'll see you guys very soon for another card making and crafting video. Have a great day. Bye!